build wealth, retire early, and pay less tax. Three of Australia's most influential and trusted advisors have all shared this same strategy on how to build wealth, retire early, and pay less tax, which I'm going to share with you in this video. And some of you may already know it, especially those who watch this channel. But to begin with, Candice Bourke and Felicity Thomas are both senior investment advisors and senior private wealth advisors. And the third person, I'll actually share who that is later in the video. But first up, I want to talk about Candice and Felicity. So a couple of years ago on the Equity Mates podcast, and by the way, if you guys aren't subscribed to the Equity Mates podcast, I highly recommend it. There's a few really good stock investing and small cap podcasts out there on the Australian about the Australian equity market. So anyway, the two of these ladies were on the Equity Mates podcast where they talk about this strategy. So what I want to do now is just cut to a clip from this episode.
Okay, so what I actually set up when I bought my place in 2019, which is my main residence now, I actually asked to split my loans. So assume my loan is $1 million. I actually split it into 3 different parts. Now, the reason I did that at the get-go is because I didn't want to have to do it once my loan was already set up. However, please keep in mind that you can actually do it now, even if you've got a main residence. So let's assume my $1 million, I've split $100,000 off it, and that's actually what I want to put into the market. I've got $100,000 cash sitting in my offset account. What I've actually done is I've taken that $100,000 cash, put it on to my $100,000, split loan. I've asked my bank to change it from principal and interest to interest only as well, guys. So make sure that you do that because that's super important. I don't actually want to be paying principal off my investment loan. I've then pulled out that $100,000, ensuring that I do have redraw available. Again, most banks do, but I would double check because you don't want to be with the one bank that doesn't allow you to do that. I've then taken my $100,000 and actually put it in a portfolio that is actually a little bit more defensive than my typical investment strategy. Now, the reason is I actually want to generate dividends. So I've got a little bit more of a blue chip portfolio here. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% blue chip. I would never do that. But I do actually have a majority that are, growth companies that do pay a dividend. Now, every 6 months, you generally get paid a dividend. And then every year I take that dividend income and actually pay it down off my main residence. Now, you can do that every year, right? Until you've actually built up a large enough position to then split the loan again. So in my case, I told you I split my loan into 3, right? So my third split is another $100,000. So I've actually been paying off that portion, right? It's not ready to actually pull out and invest in the market just yet because I haven't paid down enough. And for me, really, you want to be able to pull out a larger sum. But that's kind of how it works, in my case. So really, I'm actually paying down my main residence non-deductible debt. I've now got a deductible debt of $100,000 in an income producing investment.
That's awesome. And it really comes back to a couple of episodes ago when we deep dived, guys, into why seeking a mortgage broker could be beneficial. And I think the big key message for Felicity's personal experience here on debt recycling is set up the right structure at the get-go when you're looking to buy your main residence, right? And then all the while, this strategy behind the scenes, what's actually happening is you hope that your property price is slowly going up in value over the longer term. So you're building money in the markets and also your property's going up in value, right?
That's it. And look, I think the main goal to wrap your head around with regards to debt recycling, you're probably thinking, oh, great, but I still have debt at the end of the day. Yes, you do. But the whole point is to basically have your entire main residence as a tax deductible investment loan. So it's actually making your money work harder for you. And then you can use your portfolio to actually pay off that loan down the track. Now, this is only a good idea if you are a long-term investor. Do not even think about it if you only want to invest for 12 months. We're talking about a 7 to 10 year time horizon here.
Alrighty, so here's a couple of questions to think about to potentially ask your financial advisor if, debt recycling might be suitable for you. So is your current home loan, already set up for debt recycling? Can you redraw funds out? Do you have a separate offset account for investment opportunities? Even more broadly, like what's the current interest rate environment doing right now? And might this be a worthwhile time for you and your advisor to see if you should refinance and maybe start debt recycling? So there's just a couple of questions to hopefully spark your interest.
And I think you do want to also make sure that you do keep things really separate, right? So keep your main residence offset and loan separate from your investment loan and offset account. It makes it a hell of a lot easier for your accountant every year. And we do really recommend that you don't try do this on your own unless you're very confident in this strategy, that you do seek advice from a registered financial advisor and speak with a mortgage broker as well who's actually done this before.
100%. Because what we're essentially saying is that say your equity in your home has increased after doing all that by another 50 grand, you have the option if you want, if it's set up properly, to draw out that 50K and invest further into market.
That's it. I guess that's even, taking it to the next level, right? So not only are you've got your main residence debt, you've actually converted some of that to tax deductible debt. You're actually looking at increasing your debt. So you need to have, a stomach for being quite leveraged. But, most banks won't actually let you do it to more than 80% of the value, which is good. Again, depends on the person, your lifestyle and your objectives. But if you actually keep repeating this cycle over future years in a really disciplined manner, it really does ultimately, like we said earlier, reduce your non-deductible debt into, fully tax deductible debt in growth assets that you have a really nice portfolio for the long term. And so, like we did say, the loan facility definitely needs to be separated into separate hubs with the ability to choose between principal and interest-only repayments. So definitely speak to a trusted mortgage broker more about these different options.
Although you're a growth investor, right, through and through, you're going to be high growth for your super, assuming we're young because we can't touch it. You're going to be high growth in your share portfolio that's in your own name. This is your home. This is what you don't want to stuff up, right? You don't want to have any issues with, being overexposed. So this is when your financial advisor is hopefully saying, let's dial down your risk. And asset allocation is super key, right? So we need to water it down, even if you really want to be growth.
That's it.
We might even say something like, for example, more defensive, maybe 80-20, right? When you're more comfortable with going way more growth side. So keep that in mind.
That's it. And I think for this particular strategy, you might have a bit more of a sway towards Australian equities rather than international equities, purely because of the income characteristics that we do get with our listed companies here. I think that you should consider that it is really risky and it is super complex. I know it doesn't sound too complex, but it is quite hard to get set up initially, and it doesn't suit all investors because I know a lot of people just want to get their main residence paid down and that's it. But what that has led to is a lot of people have these large lumpy assets in retirement, say a $5 million home, and they're on the age pension. So by doing this strategy, it actually prevents you having this huge lumpy asset and then not actually having any income in retirement. That's the last thing that you want.
That's a really good point, Felicity. And I just want to also backtrack a little bit because my mind's sort of like rethinking about all these different things from debt recycling and what all these ideas because we do it and we talk about it a lot with our clients. You mentioned a good point, right? We're in an interest rate environment that's rising in Australia. New Zealand, our neighbours just did it aggressively. The US are doing it, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're concerned on that, it is an idea to maybe think about locking some of it in. Let's assume you lock in 3.5%. It doesn't matter where rates go because you've locked it in for 12 months. Then your benchmark, like we said earlier, was you can achieve that 5% comfortably. If you wash through the ASX, like let's say you've got a bias towards Australian, fully franked kind of defensive blue chip companies with some other defensive assets around there, it's pretty realistic in this market to get 4 or 5% income yield. That's the income alone, right? That's not talking about your growth.
That's it. It's definitely not including the capital growth there. Because if you look at, say, like a balanced portfolio over the long term, you're generally going to achieve around 8% per annum on average. 8 to 9% is what we've historically seen in a diversified portfolio. I think you also need to consider what tax bracket you're in, right? So if you're already in the top tax bracket, it's fantastic because your 3% is really only 1.5% interest. So, it will be very specific to your own circumstances. So you probably not only want to speak to a financial advisor, mortgage broker, but also your tax advisor. Get them all in the room and work out whether this strategy is right for you. So what I do really think that if you don't mind taking on some extra work and complexity, debt recycling can definitely be a profitable and tax effective strategy, helping you pay down your main residence while building your wealth a lot faster at the same time.
So there you have it from the girls talking about debt recycling and the benefits of it once again. So it's not just Noel Whittaker, not just myself, but the two girls there. And I'll put a link in the description to the full podcast. I recommend you listen to the full podcast in full because I just took some snippets along the way in that. And definitely subscribe to the Equity Mates podcast. I do, and I think it's very valuable, especially for those Australian investors. So the third person I want to introduce you to is Ben Nash. Many of you will know Ben, seen him on TV and in the papers and whatnot. Ben is a financial advisor, and he's also the author of a few books. One book, Replace Your Salary by Investing. And Ben, just this year, actually only a few months ago, a couple of months ago, wrote this terrific article. So here in this article, which was back in March this year, so more than a few months ago now, Ben's article here entitled Simple Way to Save $13,500 in Tax Per Year with Debt Recycling. So it says, in the current cost of living crisis, every dollar counts. If you want to get ahead, there is a limit to how much you can cut back on spending. The reality for most people today is that they reached that point a long time ago. That means that if you want to get ahead, you need to look at other ways you can get more money out of what you have today, what you can do to make progress without just sacrificing more. Enter debt recycling. So what is debt recycling? Well, go back and check our video that we did, Powerful Wealth Building Strategy, where we talked about debt recycling. And also this video, $12 1,000 Rule Secrets or Secret to Insane Levels of Wealth, where we share from Noel Whittaker's book, where basically he was encouraging people to do debt recycling. In fact, he still does today. So back to the article. This is one of my favorite strategies for homeowners with non-tax deductible home loan debt and allows you to effectively convert this debt into tax deductible investment debt. At the end of 2023, the ABS shows the average owner-occupied mortgage size is $584,000 and the current average variable mortgage rate is 7.26%. This means that if you have an average mortgage size sitting at the average variable mortgage rate, using debt recycling to make the mortgage debt tax deductible would generate you annual tax deductions of $42,500. In turn, this creates tens of thousands of dollars in tax savings, all extra dollars you can use to get ahead or spend on yourself today. With the debt recycling strategy, you make extra payments on your non-tax deductible home loan debt and at the same time draw the exact same amount of money from debt. This money is then used to invest, typically in shares or ETFs, but in previous videos I've shared with you guys, you can use it to buy real estate, you can use it to buy private businesses. In fact, I know some clients, their best returns have been from buying private businesses. You know, they're buying these businesses at 2 or 3 times earnings, which means their return on those investments far exceed any type of income you can get on any other asset class. But anyway, that's for some people. And because the purpose of this new borrowing is to invest, the interest on this portion of the debt becomes tax deductible. When you follow a debt recycling strategy over time, your non-deductible home loan debt is converted into tax-deductible investment debt. In this example, you have a home mortgage at the average mortgage size of $584,000 against a property value of $1 million, and have a spare $500 a week you want to use to save, invest, or get ahead. So how does debt recycling works in practice? Well, once again, in those previous videos, we explained that. But here in this article, in week 1 of the strategy, you pay $500 as an extra payment on your mortgage. At the same time, you would withdraw the same $500 amount from the new loan set up for investment purposes and invest this money into a share portfolio. So you can see in that chart there, day 0, in the first week, pays $500 off the non-deductible home loan and then redraws that back out into a investable or deductible debt. And you can see over time that the home loan, as you keep doing that and put more from the income from the investments into the home loan, the non-deductible home loan debt gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and the investable deductible debt gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there's a whole master limit on top of that, which actually is better than any other facility if you want this strategy. Note, because this strategy revolves around paying down non-tax deductible mortgage debt, it's really only viable for people that have a mortgage against their home or another property that's not an investment. In the table below, I've built on our previous example to show the interest deductions you can create and the potential tax you can save. For the example below, I've used a marginal tax rate of 32%. Actually works really well for those in the higher tax brackets, which is the tax rate you pay if your annual taxable income is above $45,000 after the upcoming July tax cuts. So the potential tax you can save, you can see from this that the tax savings over the long term are significant, coming in at $13,500 every single year. That's an extra $13,000 you get for just paying down your mortgage and investing money. 2 things that you wanted to do anyway. This money can be used to invest more, get ahead faster, or just spend today. Obviously, I don't recommend the second. I recommend getting ahead, becoming financially free, and retiring early. Another benefit of this strategy comes from the fact that long-term returns on shares, 9.8%. Now, I shared in the previous video over the last 100 and whatever years, it's actually over 13%. But anyway, is higher than long-term average mortgage rates. As a result, your share portfolio will grow at a faster rate than your interest you pay on your investment debt. Eventually, when you down your shares, you have enough money to clear your investment debt and have money left over. Just like the girl said in the example previously, a lot of people get to retirement, they might have this, they just want to pay down their mortgage. Yeah, cool. They've got no mortgage. They've got this home that might be worth $2, $3, $4, $5 million, and they're living on the age pension. And that's because they did nothing with that property. If you're considering using debt recycling as a strategy, you should note there are a few different ways to structure your mortgage debt, some of them better than others. Given the value in getting this strategy right, along with the complexity of actually executing on the strategy, my strong suggestion is that you get some good advice, just like what the girl said. Ideally, you should put in place a solid financial plan, but at the very least, the support of an experienced mortgage broker that knows their stuff when it comes to this specific strategy. And that's what we at First Choice Finance Group have all been about for the last 20 plus years. This is what we've been doing for clients. Getting this wrong can be seriously costly, not to mention frustrating, so a bit of time and some money will be well worth it to get the best results. If you're investing and have a mortgage, you could choose to invest the money directly into your investment account, i.e. not through a debt facility as part of a debt recycling strategy and not get the tax deductions, or you could choose to do exactly the same investing structured in a smarter way, cut your tax bill in the process. There are a few no-brainers when it comes to your money, but if you're a homeowner looking to both pay down your mortgage and invest, this is one of them. Is debt recycling risky? Anytime you borrow money to invest, there are risks you need to carefully consider and manage. But one of the best things about debt recycling is that your total debt levels do not increase at any point. This is because you're consistently reducing one type of debt while you increase another. With your total debt levels unchanged, this goes a long way to reducing your risk levels. Another important thing to mention, if you're considering using debt recycling, is the importance of choosing good investments with the money you're drawing out of your recycled debt. If you choose average or bad investments, the benefits of this strategy will be significantly reduced. Refer back to the earlier chapter on investing if you need a refresher on how to choose rock-solid investments. And this is from his book. The wrap: getting ahead isn't easy. If it was, we'd all be rich already. Particularly today with the cost of living, interest rates, wage growth, and the rest, it's not getting any easier. That means if you want to actually get ahead, you have to use the rules to your advantage. Debt recycling is a strategy that gets your money working smarter and harder. It can deliver some serious upside if you take the right approach. Now, yes, they say investing is risky, that when you invest, there's risk. I guess that's true. When you borrow to invest, there's risk. Obviously, if you use a margin loan, then, if your stock portfolio goes down, you get a margin call, and that can be quite nasty. And I've been there a long, long time ago. I had a margin loan and I experienced that. It wasn't fun. Never done that since. But with this strategy, you don't get margin loans. There's no margin loans if your investments do go down in price in the short term. So you're not going to get called away like that. The other thing is, not investing is risky. By sitting in cash and right now, I've told in many other videos that this is the most amount of liquid assets that I'm sitting in, and that's true. But over the long term, if you're just sitting in cash or just saving, currency, inflation is eating at you. Look at where home prices are compared to where they were 10 years ago and 20 years ago. Those that were waiting for a crash 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or just wanted to save for a house and pay cash for it, you're still saving. And at the same time, all these investments, all these assets have gone up. Or we could say that simply your cash, your currency, has gone down and been eaten away. So there's actually risk with not investing. And the example the girls gave with that, someone that just wants to pay down their debt and get out of debt, pay down their mortgage, get out of debt, which is fine, which is great. And I don't knock that. For some people, that's what they should do. And they're happy to have no debt and maybe retire on a pension. But for the majority of people, and I'm sure those of you that follow this channel, that's not the type of lifestyle and the type of retirement that you want. And so, yeah, you've got a $2, $3, $4, $5 million home, no debt, but you're living on an age pension. So what sort of retirement, quality of lifestyle in retirement are you actually living? So look, guys, if you want more information about debt recycling, like I said, we've done a few videos on this now. I'll put the links in the description below to those videos. Reach out to us, either speak to myself or one of our senior credit analysts, Leighton, Hamish, Namat, Leone. We've got a whole team of experienced brokers that have done debt recycling, structured debt recycling. Obviously, we can't go into specific investment advice, but hey, we can recommend a few really good resources which might help you with that. Free resources as well. Well, very cheap resources, let me say that. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, do us a favor, hit that like button. Love to see your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all again on another episode of Finance Uncut. And just a reminder, the information provided in this video is for education and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on this channel constitutes as financial advice. The information in this presentation is no substitute for financial advice, and all investors should seek advice from a licensed financial advisor having regard to your own objectives, financial situation, and needs.